If it were a sporting event, the score would read 19-0. 19 Republican-led states passing legislation making it harder for black and brown people to vote. The Democratic Senate has had the ball 4 times and punted each and every time. Some think, by the way, Senators Manchin of West Virginia and Sinema of Arizona are secretly playing on the other side. Porsha White is the Vice President of Voting Rights and State Organizing for End Citizens United, Let America Vote. She's in Georgia this morning. And Ms. White, you are in Georgia, where those restrictive voting laws are already in place. Have you given up on the feds up here in Washington, where I am?
Well, unfortunately, I can't give up. I am seeing every day how much Georgia Republicans are fighting to restrict my right to vote personally. So I can't give up. The federal government is where I'm going to have to look to for now to hopefully protect me.
Ms. White, here's the problem in Washington and the problem in Georgia and the problem in those 19 other states. It boils down to votes. If you don't have the power in the state house right now, which is the case in most of those Republican-led states, what can you accomplish outside of heated rhetoric?
I think that we can continue, of course, to push the narrative that voting rights has to be number one on every Democrat's agenda this year and for the years to come. I think that we are going to have to continue to fight in the courts to restrict some of these voting rights rollbacks that we're seeing across the country happening this year, happening right now. I also think we're going to have to look to the courts to hopefully get some of this gerrymandering rolled back. So we have other avenues that the federal government, maybe our Congress can't do, but we have a few other avenues that we're not giving up on. And of course, as a lifelong organizer, I'm going to keep leading the fight and hoping that people will continue to join us in pushing this.
As someone who watched their father do some of those marches way back, they were singing "We Shall Overcome." They were marching. In Washington, D.C., they march up and down Pennsylvania Avenue ad nauseum. And it has gotten to the point where people aren't paying attention to that anymore. One of the things that did work in Georgia, and it led to the election of Senators Warnock and you know who I'm talking about. But anyway, the problem was there you go, Ossoff. You moved for boycotts of the Major League Baseball All-Star game. It got headlines. It got corporations to say, we don't want to see that happen to us. Why did you stop?
I don't think that we've stopped. Corporate accountability campaigns are still happening across the country. We are working with our partners, specifically in states like Arizona, to hold senators accountable, including Senators Manchin and Sinema, and making sure that corporations are not giving up this fight for voting rights and that they understand how important it is to all the people that voting rights is number one, and that rolling it back is not an option. So it hasn't stopped. I don't think that anybody has stopped calling for corporations to do what they are supposed to morally do.
And I'm curious because you are the Vice President of Voting Rights and State Organizing for Ending Citizens United, which gave corporations that voice, that strong voice. Are you concerned when you see, for instance, Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, where the lobbying dollars are heavy, and it appears that basically she's taking the money and running, that you're losing to those corporate interests that are doing what they want to do by putting money into the pockets of politicians, and the politicians are doing what they want them to do as opposed to what their constituents do?
So glad you brought that up. Yes, we at ECU LAV are working very hard to make sure that that our politicians are accountable to us and not to these corporations that are giving them a lot of money. This year, just a few weeks ago, actually, ECU LAV partnered with organizations like Black Voters Matter, Collective PAC, League of Conservation Voters, to say that we as organizations are not going to give any money to any candidate who does not support all measures to get federal voting rights legislation passed. And then you saw organizations like NARAL also submit the same statement. So I think that because we are big organizing forces and big electoral forces, that we are able to sort of counteract this narrative that they have to be given all these corporate dollars in order to be successful. And so I think without our backing, candidates will consider making sure that they are completely good on voting rights and that they will do everything it takes to get them passed. So we're not super concerned that corporations are going to supersede the work of the people.